fellow nerds. We are talking Avatar the Last Airbender, the new live action on Netflix. And we have
I'm
a
excited.
special guest with us, Sierra. Thank you so much for joining us. We love.
Woo!
No problem.
So I want to pose a question to the two of you, and hopefully by the time that we're done chatting about this, hopefully we've got a good answer. So my question is this better or worse than the M. Night Shyamalan movie?
I
Don't
Ooh.
think
answer yet. Don't
okay.
answer yet. I think as we discuss it, I think we'll come to a conclusion.
Okay.
But the internet is very divided on this series. On one hand, you see a lot of videos, a lot of articles. Oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. Stell and Keith earlier, clearly the only movies that they've ever seen are Madam Web, Morbius, and Rebel Moon. And so clearly, coming into this is like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. But then on the other hand, you've got people who are longtime fans of the series and they're like, this is the worst thing ever, and everyone who made it needs to be tied up to a pole and lashed. So, like, there
Jeez.
is a huge divide over, like, what is going on with this? I would say that, boy, how do I put this? They made choices. Choices were made. I think that is a good way to put how I feel about this series.
Hmm.
Choices were made. Some of them were okay. Some of them I still don't fully understand. I don't fully comprehend why they did what they did, but some of them I do understand. So
Yeah.
let's try to preface this with some positivity, a little bit of understanding before we overwhelm you with some negative stuff. So, on one hand, here's the thing that I think all of us understand. We watch enough TV shows, we watch enough movies. We get how a lot of the stuff goes, right? There is, the stuff requires time, it requires money. Now, I believe both of you are aware they filmed this using the volume. You knew that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so just like with The Mandalorian. So we've got set limitations to a point, but we also have, we need a way to compress things. We need a way to what's it? I had something written down. I don't know where I put my notebook, but efficient storytelling. That was the word I wrote down. We have to find a way to do efficient storytelling because we've got these amazing scenes that we've craftily put together. And this wasn't all just the volume, they also built some practical sets too. In fact, you can actually tell in a lot of the scenes, like when they're next to a practical effect and when they're standing in the volume. It's kind of noticeable to its
Yeah.
detriment, unfortunately, but when you're trying to turn a cartoon into a live action series, yeah, it's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I understand why certain episodes were compressed because let's kind of jump into the middle for a second and talk about
Wait, don't we
Omashu.
always jump into the end?
We normally do, but I'm
Wait,
gonna break away
have
from
we
the not your
have we
status
all
quo norm.
seen all of it? It's all
But
done.
for Omashu, right? So I get why they did what they did. I get why they compressed so much into one, because in the animated series, we only really see Omashu for like a second. It's in like I think at the most two episodes throughout the entire three-season run. So for them to put that much effort into the CG, into the models, into whatever, I get that they would want to get the most out of it possible. So I want to preface this by saying I understand why probably from a production standpoint, why they felt they had to do this. Is it good for the story, though? I see Keith shaking his head. I think I kind of agree with you because, on one hand, while I understand, on the other hand, it kind of hurts things. So, the other thing when it comes to changes, again, the ongoing theme of this, I I feel like there's an issue when it comes to animation here in the United States. And this was the reason why I think like not a lot of people. You kind of have to like ease people into anime, and it was why I felt like I needed to come up with a list to sort of get you and Dave into anime because there's this almost
Is this a shameless
negative
plug for our
feeling.
anime for beginners?
It is also a shameless plug for anime for beginners. You caught me, but no, like there's almost this like this thing here in the States where it's like if you talk about this cartoon you like, you're looked down upon because animation, it feels to me, and maybe I'm seeing it wrong, but it feels to me like people look down on animation here more so than elsewhere. Where if something gets made into a live action version, it's like, well, we have to because that's for the adults. When that doesn't always necessarily need to be the case. I think Avatar the animated series, I think that it was pretty mature for what it was. For a cartoon on Nickelodeon, they tackled some pretty mature concepts. Like I remember telling these guys, it's like it reminds me a little bit of, what they did with the Clone Wars, where it's like, yeah, it's all fun and games until, we talk about genocide
Yeah.
for kids.
This whole the whole efficient storytelling that you talked about, it seemed to me all it did was take away a lot of the magic of the animated series.
Yeah,
It didn't seem like Aang was, yeah, I understand I have this responsibility, but hey, I'm still a kid and have these sort of side
I
quests and
agree.
do this weird stuff. It seemed to take away that part, which to me was probably the best part of the animated series. I mean, everything else falls
Hmm.
into normal storytelling, tropes to a certain extent. Yes,
Right.
he's the chosen one, he's rising up. But what really separated was him just being this little kid and wanting to still be a little kid. And in the beginning, even both the animated series and the live action, they were like, he's so young, he's not ready for this, he's not ready for this. And in the live action, they were just like, okay, he's ready for it. Let's just be that now. And with the animated series, didn't do
Hmm.
that. And I thought that was a huge shortcoming for the live action. Really,
And that's kind of a shame too, because the actor who played Aang, Gordon Cormier, excellent actor. He kind of nailed a lot of the I'd say he nailed a lot of the Aangisms where they let him be Aang. And I think they did a good choice in casting for him because out of all the child actors, probably he wasn't the worst that I've seen. Wasn't the best, but he certainly wasn't the worst. And I'm willing to give him a pass in some aspects because again, kid actor.
Hmm. I have a lot of positives and a lot of negatives when it comes to the show
Hmm.
because it's almost like out of a morbid curiosity, I definitely want a season two,
Yeah,
but
same.
it's with live actions. I'm just I want to hate it immediately. I already know it's not going to be good because of history. And
Yeah.
every time they make a live action, it usually lets you down. So I tried to approach this a little differently and notice the good things about it because you can't be negative all the time.
True. Very true.
So it wasn't hard to be positive, but I'm still not like, oh my god, it was the best ever, like One Piece.
Hmm.
It's definitely the way they captured the visual arts of it was amazing to me
Yes.
throughout the entire series. The bending was exactly what I wanted it to be. It was, it's hard to put animation into a live action because of that fact, because they can't get it exactly to looking like the animation beforehand, and that's what people
Right.
go for, and that's what they look for.
I
So
heard
I
I heard somebody call Aang's airbending dusty farts.
think,
I did have to laugh at that, but
yeah.
limitations. There's only so much they can do.
Yeah, but with this series, I think they did really, really well. That's what really
Mhm.
kind of made me stick through it. I think that so far the acting, I did try to give them the benefit of the doubt because they are kids, but I did realize, I looked up the cast age and there's, there's actors their age who work with Netflix who act better and have more of a connection than they did as a cast.
It was
You
a
know,
bit stiff, to say the
yeah,
least.
Yeah.
it was very stiff. The dialogue wasn't there for me. Like it just felt very cringy throughout the whole series.
Oh yeah.
And like with Iroh, some of the things he said, I'm like, I get what they're trying to do with it and make it deep, but when he says it, I'm like,
That was the first thing that I said to Keith when I was like watching the first couple of episodes. I'm like, does it feel like Iroh's kind of like yelling into the camera, like he's staring into the camera, like yelling at the audience, like, ah, T, you remember T? I'm saying the thing you
yeah.
like.
Yeah, I mean, I see that, but I didn't. I think honestly, though, Iroh is still one of my favorite characters.
Oh yeah,
in this live action as well. I think Zuko did really well, but
Zuko, I think, was my favorite character.
I think Zuko would have been portrayed better if who the actor who played Jet. I think they should have swapped roles.
You think?
I think Jet should have been Zuko. I think it would have worked out better. Would have been more visually satisfying. They have the same voice.
Visually satisfying? Is that? Are you trying to tell us you were more attracted to Jet than Zuko?
I mean, it could be that too. It could be that too. But I just think it would have worked better. Maybe it's the hairstyle he had going. But I think that switch would have worked. But I also still, besides that, I do think that Zuko was one of the better actors. I think Aang was all right. It's just the dialogue, they didn't have it. But Aang, that was the best Aang live action I've seen because the M. Night Shyamalan didn't work for me.
So that's the other thing that you bring up a good point. It is difficult to not try to compare this to the animated series or to the M. Night Shyamalan movie. It's very difficult. If you've seen either one, you're constantly going to be pulling in those comparisons.
Yeah.
And I tried hard not to. I wanted this to be able to stand on its own, but there were so many times where I kept thinking back to like, oh, but that character was done so much better, or they did the character development better in this. And it's like, well, at least it wasn't like the movie. And it's like, stop doing that.
Well, and I think I tried to come in as open-minded as possible. We heard about some of the changes before this happened. Like, I did like how they said that the firebenders attacked, during the festival when all the airbenders would be in the same place. Made a lot of sense. But hearing things like, they were making the Fire Lord not this overbearing parent, but, they didn't want to have that Asian stereotype of the, parents being, I'm like, that worked for that character,
It was perfect for the character.
Yeah. And I think they really failed not having the character be the same way he was in the animated series. So, you have to. When you've seen it, you do judge as you're watching. And I think they just made the changes. They had more bad changes than good changes for all of this.
Let's talk about the characters.
Well, and like Sierra was saying, anytime you're going to have something like this where you need kid actors, it's tough. I think a lot of times when they have animated series with young characters, because it's easier to get a voice actor to sound young than it is to have a young actor do a great job. And there's a lot of very fine young actors out there. But when you get 3 or 4 in a scene at a time, you can really tell sometimes. And this had that a lot to me.
It feels like they almost like it was like a first audition, picked them and didn't give them too much training. And the way the cast acted with each other, Katara was the worst for me. I was expecting a lot more. I don't think she looked anything like her animated character. They took her feminism out.
But in defense of her character, I think she was done dirty by the story. And again, I think it boils down to a lot of that. The way that they wrote her in this live action series versus the way that her character is portrayed in the animated series, they did not give her nearly enough screen time. She was not really on screen that much. They were giving a lot of time to the Fire Nation characters and less time to Team Avatar, which felt weird. But they limited her her agency. They limited a lot of her agency to where she was treated almost more like a background character. And I don't think that's the actress's fault. I think that's the directors, producers, writers, who I don't know why they made the decision that they made. But there's a lot of issues like that with a lot of these other characters that I don't understand why they felt this change was necessary. Like, on one hand, I get why they compressed some episodes. I get that change. But the character changes are the ones that I struggle to understand.
With me, I think that okay, when it comes to Team Avatar, it
Mm-hmm.
felt it felt more like it was Aang's story. They were just side
Yeah.
characters. They didn't, when they were shown, it was Katara versus Zuko talking about like the fact that she kept saying like you keep treating me like a little girl, and that wasn't Katara and Sokka's thing at all. She was more
No.
motherly. He didn't
Yes.
exactly treat her like a little girl in the series.
Mm-hmm.
It was more she had to take care of him.
Yes.
I didn't like how they rushed that crystal cave. That
That
the
was
whole
so
thing was
bad. That was so
that,
bad.
yeah, that was one of the best parts in the first
Mm-hmm.
season to me personally. But I didn't like how they did that.
Do either of you
They
know,
did.
because I never found any clarification on this, why did they cut out the Aang Katara romance? Is it because, they're kid actors and they didn't want to portray that on screen? Like, I'm trying to figure out like why they cut that out of this series when it was pretty prominent in throughout the animated series, even in
Well,
season one.
well, I'm getting to that. I guess like I feel like they did that because yes, they're kids. They wouldn't want to
Hmm.
portray like, but they didn't even pull off the crushes. Like they
No.
pulled off crushes in Stranger Things with Eleven.
Hmm.
You know, they can do it there. Why couldn't they do it in Avatar? And I didn't
That's what I
feel
don't
that at
get.
all. There was no crushes, no like cutesy, nothing. It felt more like Aang was on this journey and he brought people with him, and there's no deep ties.
Yeah.
They could drop off and he would still be doing his Avatar thing,
Yes. They
It
and
could
didn't
have
it
been
would
feel like
anybody
Team
with him.
Avatar,
It didn't have to be Katara and Sokka. It could have been anybody.
right?
it could have been
It
anybody.
it
Yeah,
felt like Avatar Incorporated. These are my coworkers.
yeah, but it's like it's a big letdown for me because they said they were going to take the feminism out of Katara, and they said that before it came out. And it didn't make sense to me because that's like her entire thing,
Hmm.
and that's her whole character. That's the reason she gets into a fight with Paku, and then when she
Yeah.
got into a fight with him in the live action, it didn't feel as emotionally. It didn't hit
It
because
didn't it didn't make sense why they would get into a fight because
yeah.
nothing really led up to it. It felt out of nowhere.
It felt more like it was almost like she
Like
just
they
wanted to
had to
fight
do it
him.
for the
Well,
story or
yeah,
something.
it didn't feel like in the animated series. It was more he was trying to, that's what he stood by. That's how life
Yeah.
was. That's how it's been for years. But in the live action, it felt more like he was just like HR, like, hey, sorry, this is how things are, and you
Yeah.
know, you can't change it, sorry. And then she's like, actually, I'm going to change it. It just didn't hit as hard as it should have.
No,
I
it
didn't
didn't.
feel any emotional connections towards anything that happened within this series, and UA's wig was absolutely trash. And I think
It
her when
looked slightly less like a penis this time.
oh yeah, slightly less, but I mean, if we're gonna take anything from the M Night Shyamalan, I think we should take UA and place her in the live action series on Netflix because this UA, it's not that the actor was bad because she was actually one of the best actors on the set, but
Hmm.
she was the woman who played in Prey for Predators, and I like her work. It's just it the wig was terrible, and her display of UA didn't resonate with me. It didn't impact me when she gave her life to be, to fill in for the moon spirit. That just was a letdown for me altogether.
I feel almost like it was a ripple effect so when it comes to adaptations, first off, I'll repeat something that I said earlier. I am willing to forgive a lot of adaptations because Here's the thing. You've heard us, those of you that watch Not Your Status Quo, you know that we review a lot of Marvel, DC stuff, and a lot out of all these movies, very few of them are, one for one perfectly, they encompass everything that's in the comics, and sometimes it's for the best. Like we've talked about, one of the best decisions they probably ever made was in the Iron Man movie. They're like, yeah, we're not going to do this whole secret identity thing. It doesn't make sense for our version of Tony Stark. And it's like, okay, yeah, that tracks. That makes sense. I can understand this change made to this adaptation, and it works. But
Mhm.
when it comes to this series, I don't there didn't seem to be much rhyme or reason why they made the character changes that they did. Like th I can understand when they do it in certain movies and certain animated series, whatever, whenever they're trying to adapt a book or a comic and they make a character change. Like Keith was talking about Dune. He's talking about Dune 2
Mhm.
or Dune Part 2,
So,
where Zendaya's character, they made a change and it made sense for the story.
yeah.
Okay, cool, good. If it makes sense to the story and it actually has a positive impact on it. But I feel like not only did a lot of the character changes in this not make sense, they actually had a negative ripple effect to other things. Case in point, one of the big controversies a lot of people had was with Sokka. Everybody was saying they ruined his character development, they got rid of his arc because they took away his sexism.
Yeah.
And I will agree to a point because, yes, I think they ruined his character development and I think they took away his arc and they replaced it with this I need to be a warrior because my daddy doesn't love me kind of thing. And I was like, that's an odd choice. I don't know why they decided to go with that.
They made him the most vanilla character on the show.
They
He was
did.
so uninteresting.
But now it ends up affecting what Sierra was just talking about with Master Paku
Mhm.
because they shot themselves in the foot by changing Sokka's character. The reason why we end up finding this out in the animated series naturally because they did a lot of showing, they didn't tell us. They showed us Sokka's sexism. They showed how he treated his sister, how even though she was basically taking care of him and she was the more mature one, because of the way that he was raised, he felt, well, women can't fight, women can't be warriors, women have to do this, women have to do that. And that's what he knew. And then we come to find out that the reason why he was raised that way and the reason why he is like that, this is just how the water tribes are. We see that displayed in the Northern Water Tribe. And we end up finding out in the animated series that unlike HR Master Paku, who's like, you have to do this because I would let you, but I mean it's written down here. I can't really break company law. It's like but in the animated series, it's like, this is our tradition. How dare you? And he almost takes offense to it. He's like, how dare you spit on our traditions? This is how we've been for hundreds of years, and
Yeah.
you're not about to come in here and change this.
Yeah.
And so he forced her to go to the healing tents because like he's like, this is where you belong
Yeah.
because
And
this
then
is how
she,
we've and now we understand. Oh, that's why Sokka was the way that he was. Now
yeah.
we get it. Now we understand why he's been this insufferable dickhead throughout the series. Now it makes sense. Now we understand why he had to grow. But by taking that away from him, it makes the Northern Water Tribe seem weird. Like we don't understand why they're doing this. Like because the South isn't like that apparently.
I don't think they did very good world, what is it, world building
No,
with
not really.
this. And I feel like they didn't explore that because they assume that anyone who's going to watch this has already seen or read the comics of
Yeah.
the original versions. But yeah, no, it just didn't work. It made it very, what is it, surface level for me. It was very surface level.
Yeah,
The
it
story wasn't
was.
in
It
depth,
was.
and I wasn't satisfied. I was satisfied with the visuals. I will
The
not let that
visuals were
go.
pretty good. Yeah.
It was pretty good, yeah. Like the costumes and everything, but it's like the changes they made were unnecessary. It didn't make sense, and
Hmm.
they could have added more they could have added more of the story where they added more of whatever they were doing. It just and honestly, though, I will say with Sokka's character, with the sexism being brought out of him, that sucked, but I do think that he was one of the better characters. Like he was a satisfying Sokka. It's not the actor's fault, I don't think. I think he looks like him. I think he sounds
Mm-hmm.
like him. I think he
I
goofs
agree.
around like him. And he's like a little what is it? Casanova like him.
There
It's
were certain
literally
Sokka-isms
just
that were still present, like the way that he originally wanted to eat Momo, that was still there. It's like, okay, that's funny.
yeah.
And
Um,
But
I
it
think
is like
I think you're right. Like the actor who did Sokka did good enough job. I think the writers just took an arc that was like wide here in the animated and made it like this. There
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
much change to his character throughout, and I thought that was very disappointing because he had one of the better character arcs on the show.
he did.
I mean, it's kind of more impactful to watch someone with that strong of a belief to
To grow and to
flip
change.
it. Yeah, to change, to do a
Because
complete
it
360, you
also
know?
made his
Or not
encounter
360,
with
180.
the Kyoshi warriors feel unnecessary. Like the way that he was acting was like, oh well, I'm not as good of a warrior, and you guys aren't really, I'm such a good strong warrior that you must have just caught me on a bad day or whatever. It's like it's such a I like your use of the word vanilla, Keith. It's such a more vanilla take on the same story. It's like
Yeah.
instead of there's no way that you could have beaten me because you're a woman, because this is how I was raised, is what I believe. There's no way that you could beat me because I'm also a warrior, and oh, by the way, I'm a much stronger warrior. You just caught me at a bad time. It's like, okay, I guess kind of.
It just didn't work and it didn't fit, and that was the whole point of
Yeah.
Suki and Sokka. Like that's something Suki really had to like. He learned from her. That's how their
Yes.
relationship developed. That's why he, pursued her a little bit more because she taught him new
Hmm.
things and feminism a little bit. It was besides just Katara being his sister alone.
Right. He
That
needed that outside help
yeah, yeah,
to help
and
him grow
it
as a
worked.
person, as a character.
Yeah, it worked. It was more satisfying. Whereas, like
He'd
in the
never
live
left the
action,
South
it was.
Pole.
I'm sorry.
He'd never left the South Pole. He didn't know.
Yeah, no, he didn't know anything. Like he only knew what he knew from the South Water tribe, and I don't like how they didn't explore anything about the South Water tribe,
Yeah.
even in the original comics. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like they could have went a little more in depth about their
They
culture with
didn't
that.
explore the South Pole until Legend of Korra.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like they could have done a little bit more of that in case some people like. Oh, there's a lot of people who didn't watch Legend of Korra,
Hmm.
but they could have went more in depth with
Keith,
that.
raise your
But
hand.
I mean, either way, the original just did it so much better. And then
Yeah.
I just got to go back to Katara because it's just everything. It didn't feel like. I felt like when it was about Korra or Katara, it was about Katara only. It wasn't like she wasn't even really transitioning. It was just like what she was
No,
doing in the moment.
she was
I don't
such a
know how to.
background character.
Yeah, but it was like a background character, but it was also like a main character, background character. Like Aang is
I
character A, she is B.
I
You
miss
know?
her moments that she had in the animated series where she was growing as a waterbender. I
Yeah,
think I think what they really and the other thing that I didn't understand is why was Aang not learning waterbending? I don't under that was the whole point of book one, water.
water.
He's supposed
Yeah,
to be learning waterbending, and he
yeah.
doesn't. And
He
Katara's
doesn't.
supposed to be teaching him, and she's eventually going. That's how she ends up beating Paku again, not developing the character the proper way. They show throughout the animated series that she gets better and she gets more competent. They also took out the moment where she met I cannot remember the guy's name. He was that firebender general who had left, and for a brief moment, he was almost going to be Aang's firebender teacher until he was like, "Yeah, firebending sucks. I hate it." And then
Mm.
he told Katara about, I heard about this waterbending thing where they can heal, and that, she demonstrated the ability to be able to pick up on how to heal with waterbending without ever having been taught. And
Yeah,
again, that's supposed to be a development moment for her character to show us that not only is she a competent waterbender, she's really good at waterbending. And in fact,
yeah,
she probably, having had no formal training, and the fact that now she's able to take on a master, that's fucking awesome.
yeah.
And we missed all of that in this series.
it just felt very rushed, like
It
here she's
was.
fighting Paku, and now all of a sudden she's telling people what to do in war. Like
Hmm.
there was
It
no
felt
arc.
unearned.
You saw her playing with it throughout the series, but you
Eh,
didn't see her exploring it. You didn't see
hmm.
her teaching Aang while she's teaching herself. It just was very lackluster. It was just
Yep.
here she could do this. Like there's no training arc, and I don't
Right.
need an entire episode. I need at least like 5 to 10 minutes per episode showing that she's like, doing something, like
Yeah.
learning. And she didn't just all of a sudden she's just master at it. That's not
Right.
real life, you know. And then how is Aang? Like Aang's not learning. You're right. Aang isn't learning anything. It's not satisfactory. Like
Hmm.
their learning arcs are not there, and
No.
the certain things that they took out, especially with Aang's character. I don't have too many complaints with Aang's character because he was the youngest on set
Hmm.
that I read, and
Yeah, he actually was 12 when they started filming.
yeah, so it makes sense. He was the youngest. I'm not too mad about him, but what was I getting at? He just his arc. I mean, with learning about him, it just didn't feel like very childish like it was. It didn't feel fun. It didn't feel like a kid who's the avatar. It felt like the avatar who was a kid. If that
That
makes sense.
was
That is a
that was the
very good
thing that
point.
Hmm.
so one of the things that they end up letting you know about, and I think they expand on it a little bit more in Korra. They do touch on it a bit in the original series, but they definitely expand on it more. One of the things that they show Aang constantly doing is befriending nature, befriending all of these animals, and he's able to be as close as he is with Appa and with Momo and with all of these forest critters and everything because he's the Avatar. And it was one of the things that other people picked up on, like, he's like really close with nature. He might be the Avatar. And so they constantly show these moments of him. I want to go penguin sledding. I want to ride the unagi. I want to do this. I want to because like he has this, not only is he just a fun-loving kid, but
Hmm.
he loves connecting with nature, he loves connecting with animals because he's the Avatar. And again, this series took that away from him, and it's like, but why? Because it didn't, by doing that, it doesn't really help the character. I get on one hand one reason why it's not great, but I do get why. So once again, in trying to fit in with the budget, I understand why they need to, light a fire under Aang's ass. Pun not intended.
Hmm.
But I
Hmm.
understand why they need to get him to be like oh man, shoot, I suck. I should be the Avatar. Well, better get on my journey. Come on, guys, we gotta go. I've got to get to being the Avatar. And it's like, I get why, in order to get them to get to the next point, they can't have him going from scene to scene to scene to scene because that would be too costly. There's no way they can sit there and digitally recreate every one of the scenes, every one of the animals. To- They said to animate Appa, it was like $1 million per shot.
Oh wow.
Yes.
So I can understand why they took that away from a monetary standpoint. It just sucks for his character because it was such an important part of the Avatar.
Yeah.
You don't
I
have the
felt like
money
I
to do
had.
it right. Don't do it.
I was
Yeah.
gonna get to that, like maybe just don't do it then.
I mean, I would have been happier with a cheaper option of Appa, but more dialogue, spent more money on the dialogue and the writers. I would have been happier with that.
Hmm.
It overall could have been better, but I will say that they did better than M. Night Shyamalan.
They did. One of my
It,
favorite scenes from the animated series that, again, they took this away from Aang and from Zuko, and it's a shame. It's when Zuko, who is really like he barely knows much about the Avatar. He literally like just met Aang, and he's looking over all the different things that he's heard, like, and he's tracking on his map, and he's like, he's been here. He's he's clearly a master tactician. And then we switch over to like Aang and friends, like, do you have any idea where we're going? Nope.
yeah.
I think there's a big sea creature that I want to ride over here. And it's like Zuko's over here thinking, oh my God, he's like, you can tell he's the Avatar. He is a master of war and tactician. And here's Aang like, I want to ride on the monster.
And it's awesome because he knows he can. He just
Right,
yeah,
right.
it's awesome. He's
And
not
that also,
scared.
that goes to his character development too, and again, something that they sort of took away from him. And I think it has, again, rippling effects to everything else is we're supposed to see that Aang is a kid, right? The
Hmm.
reason why he ran away when he did was because he was a kid, and they let you know in I think the first season, Gyatso even says, Monk Gyatso says to the other air nomad monks, like, you normally don't tell them when they're this young. You're not supposed to tell them that they're the Avatar until they're like at least 17 or something. Like you're supposed to wait. And the other monks are like, no, dude, you don't understand. We got to tell him now because we heard that the Fire Nation might attack and everything's going to change.
Yeah.
And so, like, they're making this decision. We really got to tell him. We need to get him training now. And so you can tell, like, he's a kid. He doesn't want to take on this responsibility. He wants to have fun. He's he's a nomad. He's an air nomad. So he's used to just picking up, going wherever the heck he wants, doing whatever he wants. But now he's being told, actually, you can't do that anymore. You have to go and you have to train and you have to be the savior of the entire world. Like, that's a lot to put on a kid. So it makes sense for his character that he ran away when he did.
Well, okay. I'm just gonna side. It's still Avatar. I just want a sidebar.
Okay.
Have you guys heard that? Let me start this off differently. Me personally, I think it's better when the original creators of something have their hands on it completely and utterly, and this is what they wanted to do, and this is how they wanted to portray it, and it's all them.
Hmm.
And it's unsatisfying when they don't. It's never as good as when the original creators are there. So I feel like I don't know if you guys have heard, but the original creators are creating an Avatar movie, an Airbender movie
Yep.
that is supposed to go in between the ending of the Last Airbender to
Yep.
Korra, and
Apparently, it's supposed to
I
be like when
actually
they're in their 20s or something.
yeah, the 20s and the 30s, and it's going to be
Hmm.
about them, growing up, having kids, what happened to Sokka, what happened, like who's Toph's baby daddy,
Hmm.
how they built up, I forgot the
Republic
city's
City.
name. Yeah, yeah. And kids and everything like that. So I'm more excited about that than I ever will be about
I'm
another
really looking forward to
live
that.
action. Yeah. And I liked Korra. I think she's the strongest avatar that there ever has been because she's been able to use Rava at her strongest, and no other avatar has been able to do that.
Hmm.
But I think a lot of people didn't like Korra because it wasn't Avatar the Last Airbender.
And by the way,
I
There's a lot
think
of
that
other
movie
reasons.
is coming out October of 2025, and I think we're all excited about that.
we're very
Yeah.
excited. I think what hurt Korra, because I really liked it too,
Hmm.
what hurt Korra was Nickelodeon. I've mentioned
Yeah.
this on our live stream before, but when the creators, when Brian and oh my gosh, why can't I think of I can't think of their names now, but when the original creators of Avatar the Last Airbender, they knew how many seasons they were going to get for Avatar the Last Airbender for that original series. They knew how many they were going to get, and they
Hmm.
planned the story to fit into that. And
Yeah.
they really did that. Like if you go back, you can hear them, in interviews like, "Oh yeah, we have the entire story already figured out." Like it's a few in between moments that we still haven't quite nailed down, but as far as the beginning, the middle, and the end, we already have that written. We already know exactly where all the characters are going to end up. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's really cool that you have it planned out. And they did the same thing with Korra because they were told Korra is going to be a one season series. It's just going to be a little short. It's just to be there to be like, hey, we want to make some more money off Avatar. Here's a little bit more Avatar. Because the original idea at the time was what Nickelodeon wanted to do is they wanted to do like these season stories where it's going to be okay, here's Avatar Korra. Okay, now we're going to do a season on the very first Avatar. Okay, now we're going to do a season on like Kyoshi. And that's what they originally wanted to do was these just one
Hmm.
season one-offs on each different Avatar. They did not account for the fact that people really liked Korra.
Yeah. I
And
think. Oh, go ahead. Go
they
ahead.
wrote so the original creators they wrote a complete story start to finish with Korra. It ended in the first season with she completed her character arc. She learned how to be more in connection with her spirits. She succeeded in getting the Avatar getting control of the Avatar state, and she was so connected with Aang, with his Avatar spirit, that she was able to cure the people from the bending block that they had.
Well, Keith, did you see Korra or
I've not
just
seen
Atla?
Korra yet.
Ah, okay.
Sorry for the spoilers then.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm still gonna watch it.
But
It's been
yeah.
out for how many years? Shame on me for not
Yes.
seeing it yet.
But yeah, so they completed her story and they're like, okay, great, let's move on to the next one. Nickelodeon's like, actually, we changed our mind. We need you to make more Korra because people really like it. And they're like, oh, dude, we didn't plan for this. And so the second season, a lot of people you'll hear them say this, like it seemed pretty disjointed. And out of all the seasons of Korra, the second season is probably the worst. And they ended up ending it with a giant kaiju fight.
Yeah. I mean, I think with what they had, though, they like doing it on spot. It was pretty good.
It was good for what they had to deal with. Yes, I agree.
I can understand why most people didn't like it. They liked it at the beginning, and then they didn't. I feel like it also has a lot to do with she's not Aang, for one thing. For
I
another
wasn't bothered by that.
Well, yeah, but I guess when I was watching it as a kid growing up, that's what it was for me.
Okay.
And I was
I
like,
get that.
I'm into it, but
you want to see more Aang. Yeah.
I guess I wanted to see more Aang. I wanted to see, like, I was hoping that he'd be there some type of way, and he wasn't there as much as I wanted him to. But growing up, rewatching it, and, you know, being a little more mature about it, she's still not my favorite Avatar. But she's the strongest. I can recognize that she is the strongest. I can recognize that she had to do things that no other Avatar had to do. She actually got to see Rava, the spirit of the Avatar. She got to learn about it, go into it a little bit more than in the first series. And, you know, I think it had to do with the new age, like how they were going into the age of iron. That's what I call it anyway. Like, you know how in history the railroads and stuff like that.
Yep.
That kind of took away from it as well. It didn't make it feel so magical anymore. It didn't make it feel good anymore. You know, it felt just very, I don't know how to describe it. It took away a lot of the magic for a lot of kids, I think. And also, it's just like she was very stubborn, very strong-headed, and when you're thinking that you're going to get a waterbender Avatar, you're thinking that it's going to be something like Katara because that's what you've been shown. So when it also turns out that she's not Aang, and she's nothing like Katara, she's just very strong-headed, stubborn, and brutish, you get a little, you know, I don't think she had very much of a chance, in all honesty. And then I think at the end where, you know, people will say that she's in this relationship with Asami, I feel like I would have also appreciated that more if they left it more as friends, because at the end, I know in the comics that's what happened. That's what
I was about to say that. So this is the only one of the Korra comics that I own because it felt off.
Yeah.
While I love Korra's character and I like the story, they spent less time diving into the world of the Avatar and developing the characters than they did on. It was literally this entire book is just Korra and Asami going around telling everybody that they're in a relationship and that they have to accept it. And that's this whole book.
Yeah, and I feel like they didn't mean for that to happen, or maybe they did. I don't really know, but I don't think I would have been more satisfied if they were all platonic friends. There was no romance at all. Like, I like those stories where it's like, okay, not everything has to have romance.
Not everything has to have a romance.
When they left to go on their adventure, and this isn't really a spoiler, Keith, so don't worry. I'm not really giving too much away at all.
No, once again, you don't have to worry about it. Spoil away.
Okay. But where they went off on an adventure, it felt more like Asami was like, while you guys are off doing Avatar things, I have to stay on ground because I don't have bending. So she wanted to go do something with her friend. It didn't feel like, I have a crush on you, let's go be in a relationship.
Right.
And do these things. Like, it was, that's where it also let me down. I think nothing's really going to top Atla, but I think Korra was okay. I'll never discredit her for what she did. I don't like the fact that she cut off all ties with. Oh, that's a spoiler. That's a big one. Well, I guess she cut off all ties with the other avatars, including Aang. That's what also kind of like I could see everyone reacting like, why? Like, why did you write that in there? You didn't have to. It didn't have to happen. It didn't make sense. It just plain sucked. But
well, I wonder, and I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things that I've been wondering about this Netflix Avatar series is if they intend on continuing it into the Korra story. I ask that because did you get the feeling, maybe it was just me, but did you get the feeling that the other Avatar spirits in the Netflix series, they were kind of dicks?
Yeah, they were all terrible. The Kyoshi,
like they weren't mentors at all.
I think the only good one was the fire. I forgot his name. Was it Rose? Well, I can't remember.
Roku.
But the fire Roku.
Yeah.
Fire Lord Roku. He was the funniest and best one.
He was the best one in the animated series, but in the Netflix series, even in this, he was just like, Aang's like, hey man, you really got to help me out. My friends, they were taken by Toad the Face Spirit, and Roku's like, sucks to suck. You shouldn't have friends.
Yeah.
It's like, bro.
I think
you're like the word. Why are all of you dicks? Like Kyoshi's like, hey, you know what's fun? Murder. And Aang's like, whoa.
Yep. And then Karuk is just like, hey, I'm in the spirit realm. I've been in the spirit realm this whole time.
Yeah.
Don't mess with it. Don't mess with that.
I don't give a fuck. That was Karuk. He was just like, I don't care. Sounds like a you problem, bro.
Yeah. I feel like all of them were pretty much like, figure it out yourself.
Do you think
you've got a problem and you're trying to bring me into your problem?
Right,
well, now we got a problem.
So do you think they made them all dicks on purpose in the Netflix show because the plan is they're going to bring it into Korra and she ends up cutting them off anyway, and that way it's like not a huge loss? I know that might be a stretch, but I mean, if the next thing was Korra cutting off connection with the other avatars, I'd be like, I'm fine with that. They all suck anyway.
Yeah. I felt like they were more intelligible in the
animated series. They were much better mentors.
A cartoon has more depth to it than a live action human adaptation of the same show. It's like, and most people say, I don't watch cartoons because, they're childish, when actually the cartoon is more in depth than you can like with the DC movies. The DC movie universe is not good live, okay? But the cartoons
animated
are
stuff,
the best.
My God, they're phenomenal.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's why I'm a DC fan. I could get rid of all the Marvel movies and watch the DC and the DC animated universe. It would be the best. It still is the best. I prefer those over Marvel, especially now. But that's
minor tangent time. Did you hear what's going to be coming out later this year?
No. Batman Beyond.
Batman Beyond and the last voice role of Kevin Conroy.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yep. So he had filmed it obviously before he passed, but yeah, they're going to be doing the Crisis on Infinite Earths storyline. They already released part 1, and then I think April and, if I'm not mistaken, July, they're going to release parts 2 and 3.
Not only is it Kevin Conroy as Batman, we get Mark Hamill as the Joker.
As the Joker,
part 3 also. Yes, that's going to be amazing.
That's going to be awesome. I'm excited. See, they're doing good. They're making all the right choices.
Hey! Look, animation can do it right.
Right.
Well, and a lot of times, you can do things in animation that would cost a crap ton of money to try to do live action. So you can sometimes get more out of it. And you get excellent voice actors and, you can do so much with animation. Anyone who ever says animation is just for kids has probably never watched or has only watched animated, shows that are on Saturday mornings when they were a kid. You didn't realize how much you can actually do with it.
Dude, even the stuff made for kids. Okay, you said that your son is a big Sonic the Hedgehog fan. Have you guys watched the 90s Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon?
Some of them, yeah.
Dude, that is dark. That show is super duper dark.
Mm. There are some Disney movies that are super, super dark. Just like princess movies. Have you seen Hunchback of Notre Dame?
Yes. Oh, that poor dude. Oh my
He's
God.
all about grape, and everybody wants to get with Esmeralda. And I just
Yup.
watched it recently. I'm like, I've only seen it once when I was a kid, and it freaked me out. I didn't want to watch it again. Now I know why. Because it's about religion. It's about sexual things, and it's about other things that I'm not going to say.
For kids.
It's in depth. It's like, whoa. It's like, why does it have to go this hard? But it's for kids, It's what we grow up on.
Sometimes, I'm just going to say this, sometimes maybe these aren't for kids. Sometimes maybe you're just able to tell a better story in animated form. Maybe it's like really the best or the only way to tell this story.
Yeah. I think that also they know that the parents don't necessarily want to watch a kids show. So they have to, like with SpongeBob, they add in adult jokes that the parents can get, but the kids don't understand. I appreciate those ones. Those are hilarious now, looking back on them. But
as a dad, I'm always happy when my son shows adds something that I can laugh at.
Yeah, because then you notice it, and you're like, he's asking, "What was that? Why are you laughing? What's funny?" Oh, nothing.
Oh, I'll tell you in a couple years.
Yeah. But going back to Avatar, not The Last Airbender, but Avatar, did you also hear that they're making another season with an Earthbender Avatar?
I was going to tell you about that.
Yeah.
And the reason why I wanted to bring this up, did you hear what they're going to be doing?
I want to guess. I want to guess first.
Okay, all right. Let's see if you read the same article I did.
He's going to be using lava bending. He's going to be proficient in lightning.
Huh?
He's also, I don't know what the air one was. I guess he's just going to be able to fly with the air one, and he's going to be using blood bending. That's what I understand from that.
Okay.
That's the biggest part that I know right now.
I heard about the lava bending. I did not hear about the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That feels accurate.
Mm-hmm.
They've decided that they're going to take it another step further in the progression of time. So you know how you said that, with Korra and all of that, it felt off because it's now the Iron Age that got introduced automobiles and electricity. Well, with this earthbending story, they're taking it even further in time. So this is like now another 100 years. So, do you, and sorry, spoilers, Keith, do you remember what was on the arm of the giant mech that was at the end of Korra?
I don't.
Big old gun.
Yeah.
Guess what they're going to put in the new Avatar series?
So he's going to be an earthbender with a gun.
With a gun.
Okay.
They're introducing guns into Avatar, but they're not normal guns, they're bending guns. And so that's apparently supposed to be the next big thing that they introduce to the overarching world of Avatar. It's not just something that the Avatar uses. This is apparently normal for most benders. They bend the elements using guns.
Oh, man.
I'm not excited about it anymore.
I read that and I was just like, that's a choice. I'm not sure why they're doing that.
I'm not happy with it anymore. That doesn't make me feel good. That feels like you're gonna rely your bending skills that are natural to you on a machine, and that is lame.
So, again,
it takes away from the magic of bending.
According to the rumor, that's the character 100%. Arc for the Avatar. Is everybody is so reliant on machines, he's going to reconnect with the spiritual aspect of the Avatar, and he's going to prove to everybody that he's actually far more powerful bending the elements than shooting them.
Maybe. Still,
I don't care about that. I'm not gonna lie. I don't
want to see these fantasy shows too real worldy.
oh, I see, Keith. You trying to take the Avatar's guns away? Okay.
Have you not heard of the Second Amendment?
That's what I was gonna
God.
say.
Oh no! Please tell me that it's not going to be in. Oh no, they wouldn't, would they?
No,
Are they gonna
God,
Are
I
they
hope
gonna
not.
have like a
No,
guns
that would be
rights
too political.
character that's gonna be the antagonist?
Now we've
Oh
heard this
god.
new Avatar doesn't like
Trying to
guns.
take our
Us,
guns
us
away.
at the NRA think any Avatar who doesn't want to use their guns ain't no Avatar at all.
Right. Oh,
Oh, can
so
we? Sorry, go ahead. I'll let you go first.
one of the other things that I heard, and again, a lot of this is still conjecture, a lot of it's still rumors. The other aspect to this was going to be the fact that there was going to be two people who were being called the Avatar. The main character that we follow, so they're both Earthbenders. So the main character that we follow is the true Avatar, but I guess the antagonists are going to push forward. Well, actually, we found the Avatar, and they're going to push forward this more highborn Earthbender as the true Avatar. And so there's going to be kind of this like other thing that's also happening in the background where the true Avatar is traveling around trying to learn the elements, but everybody's treating him like crap because he's not the real Avatar. And he has to
That
keep
just
proving it
doesn't.
time and time again, like, oh, look, I can bend the other elements.
That doesn't sound good to me.
You know what that sounds like? It almost sounds like the Wheel of Time. And I'm talking the books, not the show, because the show has failed. They kept like in the story, like when this powerful wizard called the dragon sealed the Dark One in a scene, they tainted the male side of magic. So any male person who uses magic, they go
Mm-hmm.
crazy. So anytime they do it, they kind of take away their magical powers. But they always like, oh, this guy is the dragon, and he's going to be, lead us to the promised land. You can't still him. And they're always like, he's a false dragon. This guy's a false dragon. Anyone who has like any magical powers whatsoever as a male, they're like, he's the dragon reborn. You got to do it. And that almost sounds like what this is, because you would have in the books, the real dragon was named Rand, and as he was doing things, they're like, oh, a dragon appeared in this city. His name is so and so, and he's got people following him. And oh, he's a false. That almost sounds like what they're doing with this Avatar.
I think I read that book. That sounds very familiar.
There's 14 books in a series.
I think I read the first two.
They're excellent books. They didn't do a good job on adapting it for TV, but that's not what we're talking about tonight.
No.
I don't understand why the live adaptations of books or comics aren't good. Because they have the source material, they have it right there in their faces, and they can go off of it. They have the money to do it, but they just don't. And it
Because
doesn't make
these
sense to me.
creators want to do their own thing. And again, sometimes it works, other times it doesn't. But that's what happens when you just with creative types in general, they want to, they want to put their own mark on it. They want to say, well, this is what I'm doing different. This isn't the exact, one for one recreation of the source material. I'm going to do my own thing. And like I said, in some cases, like Iron Man, it works out to its benefit. It helps out. It's fine. But in cases of like The Wheel of Time or Avatar the Last Airbender, not so much.
Or
It's
Halo.
like there's certain things like it makes sense when they make certain changes sometimes, but other times it's like, shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Look, I don't understand why the wise owl, that's what I'm calling it.
Why was he there?
Why
Why
was
was he
he
there?
He wasn't there
He shouldn't
yet.
have been
He's not
there.
supposed to be there. It doesn't make
He
sense.
was not supposed to be there.
He's not supposed to be talking to Aang at all.
Speaking of the wise owl, I totally forgot to talk about this, but this goes back to what I was talking about with how they changed characters. Why did they change Commander Zhao?
Yeah.
Why was he a complete dumbass in this series? Excuse the language. In the animated series, he seemed far more competent. Like he even tells you like his plan was bad. His plan was asinine, but he also seemed more competent. Like when they named him an Admiral Zhao, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. This is a guy that invaded the Earth Kingdom, found the ancient hidden spirit library, stole a bunch of stuff, angered the owl spirit so much that he's like, yeah, no more humans allowed in my library because of this asshole.
Yeah, I
And
think in the live action, it wasn't so much. You just didn't respect him. I don't think it was that he wrote him
no,
dumb.
no, like
You
I,
just didn't
he
respect him.
seemed more like a tool.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in like the he seemed like a an asshole. Like he seemed like he was there to be used.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
didn't
can
serve
we
any other
talk about
purpose.
Azula really quick?
Yes, what the heck was up with that too?
Oh man, I just
This
okay.
was a
Azula
grave
wasn't bad.
misunderstanding of her character.
I don't. I like the actress. She's a good
She
actress.
was a
Okay.
good actress,
I
but they
don't think
didn't
she was Azula
understand
though.
the character.
Yeah, that wasn't Azula for me because
No.
in the uh in the animation series, Azula was actually a psychopath. It wasn't
She
because her
was.
father was rooting her against Zuko.
No.
She was genuinely like they found out she was going to be a little prodigy by
Hmm.
she was like killing turtle ducks.
Yes.
She's actually killing turtle ducks on her own
The
and just
the
being
other
nuts.
thing that they showed us very well, they didn't exposit to us in the animated series. They
Mm,
showed us that she was very spoiled,
yeah.
very privileged,
Hmm.
but she was also socially inept.
Yeah. And to me, they made her more charismatic than she should have been.
Yeah, and it
And
didn't
I don't think
not
the
her.
actress worked for me. She didn't. She has the softer features than I would imagine for
Hmm.
Azula. And might be me nitpicking it, but it's like I don't see her as Azula because Azula is a little more strong and a little
Yeah,
more agile, a little more I don't know how evil looking. Like I can't. I don't know how to
angular.
describe. I'm sorry.
She's more angular
Angular,
than
yeah, I
soft and
guess
round.
so. I guess so. But that's also with Zuko. But maybe that's just maybe I could be just superficial. That is very surface level.
Yeah,
If we're sticking to like the acting, she is a good actress. I like her.
she
Another
was a
thing,
good actress, yes.
I just don't think she was Azula for me. She wasn't insane enough for
No.
me. Although I think June was perfect. June was perfect.
And you have to forgive me because I truly did forget. Was was she the one who took over Omashu in the animated series? I don't remember her doing that.
I don't
I know
remember.
she took over Ba Sing Se, but I don't
Let me look
remember
at
her conquering Omashu. So that kind of threw me off. Like I know the Fire Nation itself did, but I don't remember her being the one who led that.
No, she did. She did.
She
I
did?
just looked it up. Yeah.
Okay, I could not remember that. And I was like, that seems like an escalation. Like that was weird.
Yeah, it was her. It just wasn't done the same way or with
Ah,
as much impact as it was in the live action.
hmm. Yeah, it was very rushed. It was like they skipped straight to the end. And it's like she's standing at the gates and it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, there was a
Yeah.
lot of characters that they changed and it didn't make sense for why they changed them the way that they did. Like if there was some sort of story reason for it, I would have
Hmm.
accepted it as okay, you're doing your own take and this makes sense for the story. But for a lot of it, it really doesn't. Like, here's the thing that I love but I hate at the same time. I love that they expanded on Zuko, going into the war meeting. I love that they expand on how he truly does care for the Fire Nation soldiers, and he calls out this general for wanting to sacrifice him. And I
Yeah.
love that they stuck with that story. And on one hand, I like that the people on his ship are those same soldiers.
Yeah. I
But
appreciate it.
on the other hand, doesn't this seem kind of stupid for the Fire Lord to have done that?
I don't see it that way because I understand why he did it. Me personally, I understand because he's like, you want to save them so bad, you want to be around them, you want them to live. Okay, well they can live on your ship with you while you're in exile.
Okay, I
That's
guess
how.
that does make a little bit more sense. Like if you're saying they're exiled as well,
Yeah, yeah.
that
Yeah,
makes a little bit more sense. I was thinking that I was thinking about that. I'm like, so he's essentially giving his son an army of people that are loyal to him And once they find out what the Fire Lord is going to do to them, they're not going to be loyal to the Fire Nation anymore.
Yeah, I don't think he counted for them finding out though.
Okay.
It's not like Zuko ever told them. The only reason they found out was because of Iroh.
Iroh, yeah. Which Iroh did get better, I think, in like the third episode on.
Yeah.
To me, he was very cringy in the first couple of episodes because it was almost like, while he's a good actor, it's like he didn't quite understand the character yet. It took him a little bit to find find his
Sometimes I
inner
wonder
Iroh.
if, because they take a ton of takes. And sometimes I
Yeah.
wonder with him, they were like, that's the take
Is that the
they
first take?
picked?
Right.
Yeah.
No, I did like 300 of them. That's the one they took?
Right.
Oh, that's the worst one.
Well, because, like I said, like in his first couple of introductory scenes, he was just like looking at the camera like, tea.
Oh,
Yeah.
Aang, I'll get you some tea.
Let me get you some jasmine tea. Did everybody hear that? I said tea. You remember how I like tea? It's like, yeah, I get it, series. Thank you.
I don't know.
that this
He's
is
still
Iroh.
one of my favorite live action characters, though.
But when he started going into in depth about his son, and when they added on those extra scenes with Zuko and him, oh, that broke my heart. They did that part good.
It added depth, and I appreciated that as well because it's like we already know why Iroh sees Zuko so close, like why he's on him so much.
This just added to it. This was a change done right.
Yeah.
They did one right.
Although I hope they don't take away the song he does by the tree.
I hope not to, because I heard the instrumental of it in the background during that scene, and I was like, please don't take away stories about Sing Se. Like, I get that it's a filler episode in the animated series, but it's so perfect for what it is that they need to leave it alone.
Yeah.
Because A, it expands on Iroh and Zuko, and B, boy, does it help round out the whole Appa character arc with him being alone.
I would understand why they did take it out because of the fact in the animated series, the original man who played Iroh, he ended up passing away, and the last time you heard his voice in the series
was in that one.
Was in that song. So,
they used that episode as a way to transition because they have him in the beginning, they have the new voice actor in the middle, and then they have the original Uncle Iroh singing the song.
Yeah. So it makes sense. If they didn't, I wouldn't be too surprised, although I'd be a little disappointed, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did that. It makes sense because it's not so much needed in the live action as it was in the animated series. But I do have a question. So what are your guys' favorite characters? Favorite to least favorite characters in the show?
In the live action?
Yes, yep.
Keith?
Man, that is a tough one. Favorite is probably going to be Zuko. Where in the animated it was Uncle Iroh. And I think Zuko was much better in this. Least favorite? And that's tough. There's a few that I just really did not like. Let me think on that for a little bit.
Yeah.
All right.
You want to go?
No. Yeah.
Okay.
So my favorite was also Zuko. I said that earlier. I think that they expanded on his character pretty well. I think the additional scenes of him younger in the Fire Nation, I think that helped round out his character a bit more, give us a little bit more in-depth to him. My least favorite character, and this is a very little fault to the actor, but that would be Katara. That's because they gave her so little screen time and they changed her character so much. She wasn't the same strong Katara from the animated series. She wasn't the same. It was less believable to see her fighting and winning against Master Paku in live action, where it was more believable, and I expected it in the animated series because I actually watched her train throughout. I watched her get stronger. I watched her start off unsure of what she was capable of, so much so that in in an emotional fit, she's the reason why Aang was freed. She cracked that iceberg. Whereas in the live action series, they don't really do it like that. Instead, she's sort of kind of water bending to try and get their boat back and accidentally cracks the iceberg. It was less there was less depth to it. It didn't feel as big as it did in the animated series, and we didn't really get to see her practicing and using her waterbending as much in this and working up to becoming a master by the end of the season.
Yeah.
Because what I really like what they do in the animated series, in the beginning when she meets Aang, she finds out that he's an airbender. She's like, oh, hey, you're a bender. And to her, they're all the same because, again, like Sokka, she's never left the South Pole. So to her, all bending is the same. She doesn't really know that there's a difference between how the bending is done. And so she turns to Aang and says, hey, can you teach me how to waterbend? And he's like, yeah, sure. I only know how to airbend, though. And so we see her having to basically teach herself. And she has to steal that waterbending scroll, which they don't have her do that in this. I don't know why.
Her mom gave it to her, and that was.
I guess,
Her
or it's like some
grandma
sacred
gave it
treasure
to
or
her.
something. I don't know. It was weird, but they basically make her self-sufficient to the point where the roles are reversed. So now not only has she taught herself, but now she's teaching Aang. And I loved that. I loved that aspect of the animated series, and they didn't do that at all because, again, like I said before, Aang doesn't even waterbend in this, and I don't know why.
He didn't even try to.
No.
He,
So
when,
yeah,
when
my
it was
favorite was
brought up,
Zuko.
he
My
just,
least favorite was Katara.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think for me, my favorite, maybe it's just because of the animated series. It's always going to be Iroh. I
Mhm.
just like Iroh. I don't think the actor for him was very bad at all. Honestly, I just
No.
Isn't
But
it
if
Carson
it's gonna
Teva, I
go,
think?
what?
Yeah, he's the guy from Mandalorian. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think if I'm gonna go in order, I'm gonna go a little in depth. It's like goes Iroh, Zuko, Sokka, Aang, actually June. June is
Oh,
right
I
after
forgot about
Iroh.
June.
Yeah,
They changed her
like,
character too.
I liked her. I thought she was spot on, honestly.
Mostly, but um she was like more into Iroh this time around, where it was
Yeah.
to me it was funny how he was like he kept throwing himself at her in the animated series and she was kind of repulsed by it.
Yeah, yeah. But I didn't mind that change. It's slight. It didn't bother me
Yeah.
too much. But then it goes Jet. I think Jet was actually perfect for Jet, but he's still lower on the list because he wasn't too relevant this time
Mhm.
around. Boomy, he looked good, but it just the character wasn't there for me. And
We
least
should talk about
favorite,
that when you're done, yeah.
Actually, can I amend my least favorite was Boomy? I thought they
yeah,
did that
You
character
never gave us
just.
your least favorite, did you?
Yep, no, that's. I
Oh,
was thinking it through, and
okay.
I just thought they took that character, and he was nothing like he was in the animated series, and
mm-hmm.
just you need to be tested and be strong instead of being this old friend of his who, while
Hmm.
knew he needed to be strong and tested, also was like happy to see his friend again and kind of brought out a little youth in him, if you will. And that was not. I mean, he was
Yeah.
just a stepping stone in this series, and he was
It
just.
just felt very rushed. You didn't even get to see them do the slide. I don't know what it's called, but when they were sliding down, that wasn't.
Oh yeah, the mail service thing.
Yeah, it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun.
No.
I mean, you saw it for like a split second, but it wasn't. It wasn't.
Again, I think it was just limitations. You know, they can do more with that. They could show that better in animation than they could in live action. They probably had like a slide, this long or whatever, and it's like, okay, we're gonna push you down, we're gonna get the shot, that's it.
You know what? I think I'm rearranging my thing here, but I think
Okay.
my least favorite character is Katara. Zhao is in front of her, but Katara because I expected more. She's one of my favorite characters in the
Yeah.
animation. They just fumbled
They did her
that.
dirty.
And it's not the actress's fault.
No.
It's the writing. But
All
they
right,
could have
should we
better.
get into our ratings for the first
Oh
season of
yeah,
Avatar the Airbender?
who's going first?
We'll let Doug go first.
Well, here's the thing. I said that in the beginning I wanted to discover, is this as bad or worse than the M. Night Shyamalan movie, or is it better than it? And I think we can safely say that it is better than the M. Night Shyamalan movie. There is not much that is worse than that. That is all around not just a bad Avatar movie, it's just a bad movie in general. There was so much that was wrong with that. And I have heard recently that M. Night didn't actually have as much to do with why it was so bad as most people have blamed on him. Apparently, this is a lot of studio intervention, which now that we've been doing this for as long as we have, I believe that there's probably a lot of studio intervention. Now, would he have made a good movie? I doubt it. Probably would have been just as bad, if not weirder. Would have been very M. Night. But, this Netflix series, better. Um, but oh God, I think because some of the things were good, but they were sprinkled here and there. But there was so much that was done poorly that I want to give it a 5 because it's just average for me. It's fine. It's not terrible, but it's also not great. And if you had to choose what you're going to watch, if you want to, watch Avatar the Last Airbender and you're going to choose, watch the animated series. Maybe skip this. But if you're just genuinely curious, like you really just want to know, if you've already seen the animated series and now you want to know, I guess give it a watch. If you've already got a subscription to Netflix, it's not going to cost you anything more than what you've already paid. So give it a watch if you haven't already. But honestly, this is skippable. So I'm gonna give it a 5 because it is average at best. Um, but again, it is still better than the M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Yeah.
All right, Sarah, what do you think?
I'm gonna give it a 7. It's a little more above average, and that's purely because of the things that they did right. And I think that they can fix the things that they did wrong. I am also leaving, like, I have hope for the second season. Maybe they heard the fans on this first season. It felt like this season might have been even more experimental.
Mm-hmm.
So, purely based on the hope that the second season learns from the first season, I'm giving it a 7. Also, like I said, the bending was there for me. The costumes were there for me. The, visuals were, it was all there. And that's actually really, that you don't see that often. It was all there for me with this live action, visually. And I think that adds a lot of points. And then on top of, some of the characters that they did do right, like Suki, I think she was awesome. I think she was perfect too.
Yeah, she was good.
But that's mostly visuals, and for some of the people that they did do right, rather than the dialogue ruining it all for me, I'm giving it more of an optimistic look. That maybe they can learn and reframe the script and dialogue and character development in the second season.
Okay,
But
that's fair.
7 for me. So.
See, for me, I think the bad definitely outweighed the good in this. I mean, the visuals were nice. I do think the choreography with the bending, for the most part, they did a really good job with it. That certainly wasn't the bad part. But the changes they made to some of the main characters that lessened their arc throughout it, like, we talked about, it made, them almost side characters. When they were Team Avatar was all main characters in the animated series. And them kind of pushing them to the side a little bit. And instead of, their character arc being overarching and good, it was much more of a straight line. And I thought that was extremely disappointing for me. And I had a tough time watching it. The dialogue, some of the writing, and the way it was, how stiffly it was delivered from some of these actors was just tough to watch. And, I think for that, I do want to see a season 2. I would like to see them correct some of these mistakes and get it on track and hopefully do a little better. But I think for the first season, I'm going to give it a 4. It was not where it should have been. They made a lot of the choices they make were, in my opinion, the wrong choices. And it hurt the characters. It hurt the overall season. And I think lessen the impact of a lot of the events that happen.
I get that. I get that.
Yeah, I get that too. And I do agree. I think one of the worst things about it was the unnecessary changes to the characters. I know I sound like I'm beating a dead horse, or I'm on repeat, but if it makes sense to make the change, go for it. If it actually adds to the story, do it. I'll be the first person to praise your changes in the adaptation if it makes the story better, if it makes sense to advance it. But when you're doing it just to put your own mark on it and it doesn't actually advance the story, and in fact, it not only hurts your characters that you're changing, but then has a ripple effect to the other characters, that's where I'm like, shouldn't have done that. So, yeah, no, I get that. I get that. Now, I did want to mention one thing because Sierra brought up the costumes, and I know Keith wanted to talk a little bit about those.
Yeah, it was, to me, I don't know. They looked like costumes. They didn't look like, a lot of the times in these shows, we know that there's a costume person, they put them on, but they looked lived in. These looked like they were constantly untouched and pristine, and it threw me off a little bit. And it wasn't something that I was like, oh, that's terrible, I can't believe it. I understand why they did it. They wanted to look good, and everything looked good. It just threw me off a little bit that things are going on and all of their costumes are still just look perfect. There's no sweat on them or
clean.
anything. Yeah, I was like, I know why they did it. It looked better with the characters on screen, and it made it the cinematography probably a little
They had
more
a lot of
eye-pleasing.
darker backgrounds, so
Yeah.
I get that.
yeah.
Maybe if they dirtied them up a little bit more, I could see that. But not change them.
I was less bothered by it because I did read about that being a controversy before the season even aired. When they were showing some of the stills from the show, a lot of people were complaining like, "Oh my God, why don't their costumes look lived in? Why do they look like they literally just came out of the press?" And it's like, I'm okay with it. It's fine. They never did. They never did that in the animated series, and I get that it's a cartoon, so of course they're not going to. But I also don't mind it in this because they did have a lot of darker backgrounds, a lot of earth tones earth tones, a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
so having the bright colors stand out against the darker colors that helped, I think, for filming. So I didn't mind it too much. But to Keith's point, just wrinkling them a little bit might have been good.
Yeah.
Maybe not using so much starch.
Yeah.
Throwing a little bit of dirt there. Here
There
and
you go. Yeah. Rub some dirt on their cheeks. You know what? Something that I did forget to mention, and I only mentioned it in passing when we were talking about how much it cost to animate Appa. I liked the animals in this. I think they did
Oh
a
yeah.
good job. Appa was great. Momo was great. What's her name? The bounty hunter's animal was really good.
Yeah. I think
Ko, the
Momo's my
spirit, the face
favorite.
stealer, was really good, really creepy.
Oh, that they did
Oh,
a good job on that one.
His
actually,
story didn't make any sense,
yeah.
but he was creepy.
How are you gonna have the face stealer without the face stealing when they show him?
Hmm.
Like, they showed emotion and they didn't steal his.
Wait, hold up. Wait a minute. I totally forgot. Now that we're talking about what happened with the panda spirit?
It wasn't there.
Huh?
Oh yeah, no, they never solved the panda
No.
spirit's problem.
They never solved it. Oh my gosh, I just thought about that.
The whole reason he went in there, is to do that, and they just left him.
They just left him.
It's like that was a plot hole. You went in there. You went in there to do one thing. You lost your friends, and then it turned into you retrieving your friends.
You gave a toy to Ko, and you're like, deuces.
You didn't solve what you're going in there for in the first place. You just said, I'm going to put my friends in danger, and then I'm going to get them out, and that's the whole point of what I'm doing. I'll give the panda a toy.
Right. The panda's like, I guess I'll keep rampaging then.
Yeah. They didn't do enough on that either, actually.
Oh my God, I forgot about that until now. We were talking about that.
And you know what?
Oh, dude.
Was Yue in the spirit world in the
Yeah, she
animation?
was the fox. That was
In the
also dumb
animation
too.
though? I don't remember that. I
Yeah,
thought
it was so stupid.
yeah. I thought that was weird. I'm like, why is she there? Why is the owl there? This doesn't make sense. Why are they doing this? But I guess if she was there in the animation, then I get it. But if she
Oh
wasn't,
no,
then
no, no. She wasn't there in the animation.
yeah, that doesn't make sense then. It just doesn't
No.
work.
No.
Yeah.
So she mentioned that she had a connection to the spirits at the North Pole and that she explained it during the whole like, hey, by the way, here's the fish, these are the spirits. I'm part spirit because they gave me their life. But that's as far as it ever went. And then like you see her, rejoin and become one with the moon or anything like that. You never see her in the spirit world.
I mean, we didn't need to either.
And she definitely did not appear as a fox. So it was weird to see an animated fox flirting with Sokka.
Yeah, I mean, I get that she's an Arctic fox, but like the fact that she was flirting so hard,
Yeah.
I felt a little uncomfortable that an animal was flirting with him like that.
Yeah, so you're gonna take away my scene of Aang and Kantara in um
Lovers.
the lovers cave, but you're gonna have a animated fox flirt with Sokka. Okay.
How are you gonna have the lovers cave without the lovers?
Ugh.
But yeah.
No, you had two siblings that were kind of upset at each other.
And didn't they even change the story? Instead of a man and a woman, it's a
It
woman
was
and
two
a
women,
woman.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Which
don't think they need.
I didn't catch that right away. Like I ended up when I was going back and rewatching the episodes, I was like, "Oh, I didn't realize they made that change." But it doesn't. That part doesn't matter, really. Like
It's not a big deal. I just
it's
noticed
a
it.
nothing change, but it's kind of like a why, but also it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But they didn't put enough emphasis on it either. So like they mention the story, but then they kind of like shove it in the background, like it doesn't really matter anymore. The point of having Aang and Katara together was to expand on that story because they're like, oh, we have to put out the light. Oh, now we can find our way. And they kind of do that in this one, but they're like, oh, we can follow the. Oh no, it turns out that's BS. We don't follow them after all.
Yeah.
It's like, uh.
You might as well just take it out altogether because
Right?
you
Yeah,
didn't
then just
even
take that part out.
elaborate.
Would have
You
been a
didn't
better
even
choice.
elaborate.
Yeah. If
Yeah.
you're gonna, because that was the entire point of the story was like they've got this like song and nobody really understands how they found each other, and then you find out they had embedded all of these like lit up stones into the wall, and that was the way that they did it. But then
Yeah.
so I don't know why they made that change. That was a little weird. That was almost like the the writers of this series like that was dumb. We're changing it.
It was like the way they didn't elaborate on the crystal wall at all. It's just
The crystal ball.
crystal walls.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like they just here's a mole. You know, tell
Yeah.
me
Oh
love.
yeah, that was and they were there and then gone. So it's like
Yeah.
hopefully if they do make a season 2, here's my hope. If they make a season 2,
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping we get more expansion on that, especially once we get introduced to Toph.
Oh, I'm
Because
excited for
she is
Toss.
so tied to the Badger Moles. Like they're like her best friends, and that's how she learns how to bend.
Yeah, man, I think Toph is my favorite character in
Toph
animation.
is the best character. They
There's a lot.
she got
There's
she,
a
she
lot.
got kind of like grumpy and crappy in Korra, but she's still cool.
I think she's exactly how she's supposed to be as an old woman. I think it was perfect.
I suppose.
I
But
just don't. I
living
don't
like a
understand.
hermit in the swamp was a little weird.
I just didn't understand how she became. She had such a problem with authority. How for her to create the police force was weird for
They
me.
explain it in the comics. I hate being that guy, but they explain it in the comics.
I still don't. I guess because I didn't go in depth with that. Like I stopped at a certain point. So I guess because I didn't further, I guess. I don't understand it. It doesn't make
So
sense.
she accidentally creates a police force. Like, that's not what she's trying to do. She starts it off, it's a school of metal bending, and that's what she's doing. But then some crime is happening, and she realizes that the only people that can stop it is her metal bending team that she's just trained, because, like, I guess Aang was trying to uh talk Zuko off the edge from being like a super edge lord about, like, oh man, oh Fire Nation, I need to, oh I'm so bad. And Aang's like, hey bro, you're not that bad. And so like Aang and Zuko were busy, they couldn't help. So it was like up to Toph and her metal benders, and so she like accidentally made a police force, and that was not her intended goal.
That's a little more satisfying than just, what I
Yeah,
was.
and in fact, she didn't even want to do the metal bending school to begin with. She only did it because they were hurting people by trying to metal bend and sucking so hard at it.
Do they also explain why Toph's daughters suck at earth bending in general? Because
No.
I don't know if you saw in Korra, but they should have been able to fold Kuvira over like 100 times over. They should have been able to go toe to toe, and they weren't.
They do not cover that in the comics, because I think that'll probably take place in that movie.
I hope so,
because in the comics she's still young. She's like, I think the comics end when she's like 15 or something. She doesn't have kids yet.
And then Aang being a terrible dad sucked.
Yeah, that does suck.
I mean, do they explain that?
Sorry, Keith. No, again, this is all stuff that happens, when they're adults. So
yeah, that just sucked. I didn't like how they explained it. Like, he's just off doing Avatar things while Katara's just at home taking care of the kids. Pretty much favoring one kid because he can airbend and just saying.
Yeah, I didn't like that explanation in the Legend of Korra, that he would be like, well, this is my airbending kid, so therefore I don't give a shit about the other kids.
That didn't work for me. That doesn't work for me. That's not satisfying.
It doesn't seem like something Aang would do.
No. I have to go to the bathroom. So.
I was going to say, it is probably about time to find someone to raid. So thank you so much for coming on, Sierra. We always enjoy your expertise and enjoyed talking about Avatar with you, even though it was disappointing, maybe a little bit for the live action. Still better than M. Night's.
Yeah. But, all right. Thank you for having me. I always love being here. And,
thank you for joining us.
Yeah, of course. No problem.
Hey fellow nerds, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of this stuff, make sure that you check out our Twitch stream. We try to do these live Sunday or Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Keep an eye on our social media to find out when you can join in live and chat with us during these live streams. Also, as usual, don't forget to check out our other social media. Add us at Twitter, comment down below, and we'll see you next time right here on Not Your Status Quo.